Have you ever listened to a piece of music and felt like time just stopped? Your heart opens, your mind quiets, and suddenly you remember something deeper, something beyond words. That's not your imagination, that's your soul responding. Today we're diving into something rarely talked about in modern life: how classical music can unlock your spiritual potential, not just to help you relax or focus, but to awaken something profound inside you and something ancient, beautiful, and real. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll never listen to music the same way again. We all know music is powerful, but why? Why can just a few notes make us cry, lift us up, or give us goosebumps? It comes down to this: music speaks directly to emotion. While language goes through the thinking mind, music bypasses it, going straight to the subconscious. In fact, music activates more areas of the brain than almost any other activity. And classical music? It was built to do this. Think about it. Bach's mathematical precision, Beethoven's thunderous emotional explosions, Debussy's dreamlike textures. Each one is like a different doorway into the soul. When you hear that cello swell or the silence between two piano notes, it's not just sound, it's spirit made audible. Let's go back. Long before Spotify playlists and earbuds, music was a sacred experience. In ancient times, music was tied to ritual. Chants, prayers, vibrations meant to invoke the divine. Fast forward to the Baroque era, where composers like Bach saw music as a direct connection to God. He even wrote Soli Deo Gloria, to the glory of God alone, on many of his manuscripts. To him, music wasn't entertainment, it was prayer. Mozart once said, "Oh no, the music is not in the notes, but in the silence between." That's mysticism, that's presence. Even Beethoven, in the deafness of his later years, wrote music he could no longer hear, only feel. And that's what makes classical music different. It was written from the soul, for the soul. Now let's bring in the science. Studies show that classical music, especially from composers like Mozart and Bach, activates the parasympathetic nervous system. That's the part of your body that promotes healing, calm, and presence. In other words, it puts you into meditative states. Brain scans show that people listening to certain symphonies experience brainwave patterns similar to those of deep meditation or prayer. It literally changes your brain chemistry. But here's the kicker: music in specific tunings, like 432 Hz or 528 Hz, is said to resonate more closely with natural frequencies of the earth and the human body. Some call it the God frequency. Even if you don't believe in energy, you've felt it. That shiver down your spine, that lump in your throat, that's vibration interacting with your very being. Let me share a quick story. There was a time in my life when I felt completely lost. Nothing helped. Not self-help books, not podcasts, not even meditation. One night I stumbled on Arvo Pärt's Spiegel im Spiegel. Just a violin and a piano, slow, repetitive, simple. But in that moment, something cracked open. I started crying, not from sadness, but from remembrance. I remembered who I was beneath the noise. I wasn't broken, I was just out of tune. And the music helped me tune back in. Maybe you've had a moment like that. If not, it might be waiting for you in a symphony you haven't heard yet. But let's pause for a second. Why does that moment, where a song makes us cry, feel so rare and sacred? In our modern world, we're trained to value efficiency over feeling, productivity over presence, But spiritual growth doesn't happen in hustle mode. It happens in stillness, sensitivity, and awe. And classical music is one of the few things left that demands all three. You can't speed listen to a Mahler symphony. You can't multitask Rachmaninoff. It's not background noise. It's a temple you enter, and that's exactly what makes it spiritual. Not because it's religious, but because it's reverent. It asks you to stop, to feel, to surrender. You know, there's a beautiful quote by Leonard Bernstein. Music can name the unnameable and communicate the unknowable. That's what spirituality is too, and a reaching for something we can't quite name. A longing, a remembering. Have you ever noticed how when you hear a certain melody it feels familiar? Like it's speaking a language you already knew even if you've never heard it before. That's no accident. In many traditions, music is considered a form of soul memory, a way to remember where we come from and where we're going. Some even say that before birth, our soul hears its life's theme, a kind of spiritual soundtrack. And throughout life, certain pieces of music activate that theme, not by chance, but by resonance. Let me give you another example. A friend of mine, a lifelong skeptic, logical, analytical, didn't believe in anything he couldn't touch or prove, told me once that the first time he heard Gorecki's Symphony No. 3, he wept, not from sadness, but from recognition. He couldn't explain it. He just knew that something in that music was true. And in that moment, all the walls he'd built, the doubt, the cynicism, dropped. He didn't convert to any religion, but he said something changed. He said, "I don't know what it was, but I think it was the first time I felt like my soul was real." That's the power of classical music. It doesn't preach, it doesn't explain, it simply speaks the language of the soul and lets you remember it on your own. And this is where the spiritual potential truly lies, because once you remember, once you touch that part of yourself, you can't unknow it. You begin to live differently, more gently, more truthfully, more awake. You start to recognize beauty again, not just in symphonies, but in a leaf, a laugh, a quiet morning. The world doesn't change, but your perception does. Because now you're not just seeing it with your eyes, you're seeing it with your spirit. So if you ever feel numb or lost, if the world feels too fast, too loud, too shallow, you don't need to fix yourself. You just need to tune in to something timeless, to something beautiful, to something true. And that's what classical music offers. Not just sound, but a sanctuary. So how do you use classical music to unlock your spiritual potential? Here are 5 simple steps. 1. Choose intentionally. Don't just hit shuffle. Pick a piece that resonates. Try Debussy's Clair de Lune, Mahler's Adagietto, or Hildegard von Bingen's Chants. 2. Be still. Don't multitask. Sit. Close your eyes. Breathe. 3. Listen between the notes. Pay attention to the silence. That's where the soul speaks. 4. Let your body respond. Goosebumps. Tears. That's not weakness. That's awakening. 5. Come back often. Spiritual growth is not a one-time event. It's a return. The more you listen, the more the music starts to listen back. In a world of speed, noise, and algorithm, we're more stimulated and more disconnected than ever. Classical music is a rebellion. It asks you to slow down, to feel, to remember. It connects you to the invisible, to God, to Source, to the universe. Whatever word you use, it's a mirror, a sanctuary, a portal. We don't need more noise. We need more beauty. And classical music is one of the most accessible spiritual tools we have. So next time you feel lost, put on a piece of classical music, not to fix anything, not to change your mood, but to remember who you are beneath the distractions. Let it wash over you, let it speak, let it tune your soul, and if something stirs inside, follow it, because maybe, just maybe, that's your spirit humming back into harmony.